Look at all these little microscopic critters. These are euglenas. There are lots of different species of euglena, okay? So they come in various shapes and sizes, but they all do have in common. They have chloroplasts, and they have that flagellum. Some of them have two flagella. But remember, like they are producers, but they are also at the same time consumers, which is really cool. So they're not plants. We call them algae because they are unicellular autotrophs, but they also can eat. So it's pretty cool. I love these guys. And I was thinking, I saw a great image here. Amoeba, no. Euglena, yeah, so these guys are eukaryotic cells. That means they have organelles, a nucleus. If you look in this image though, you see all these little teeny tiny specks that are floating around and swimming around? Those are bacterial cells or prokaryotic cells. One thing I think sometimes we forget is how much smaller they are. Okay, they are hundreds and hundreds of times smaller than a eukaryotic cell. So for most of the history of life on Earth, like 3.8 billion years ago, and then for 2 billion years, all life was like that size, smaller than what you could even imagine. I mean, don't get me wrong, eukaryotic cells are small. Well, prokaryotes are really small. So today, I think what I want to do is let's look at small. How small is small?
All right.
Hey now.
Mr. Kovacs Class. It's Mr. Kovacs Class. You might learn a ton. It's Mr. Kovacs Class.
He's interested too.
It's Mr. Kovacs Class.
And he's super cool.
It's Mr. Kovacs Class.
Now, amoebas are big cells. They really are. They're pretty big cells. Here, let's get them back in here in the middle. They're really huge. Okay, they're about as big as you can live and be single-celled, the amoebas. This is Amoeba proteus. There are lots of different species of amoebas. There's some amoebas that make shells and live in shells. They're about the biggest cells you have. Now, what's cool is that you have amoeboid cells in your body. Your white blood, this is an interesting picture, but these little round ones, those are red blood cells, little red. This is a white blood cell called a macrophage, and it's actually chasing a bacteria, and there it goes, it caught it, and it eats it. That's one of the ways you protect yourself from disease, is by having amoeboid cells. Amoeboid cells, let's get into they're there. Amoeboid cells that are constantly on patrol. When they find something that doesn't belong, they eat it. Isn't that cool? All right, this is an animation done by a website called cellsalive.com. I'll give you an idea of how big or how small, I guess, things are. All right, so we're all comparing to the head of a pin, okay? And it allows us to slowly, oops, sorry, hit the wrong button, there we go. Slowly get closer and closer, all right? So if you think about like how small you can actually see, if you squint, probably like this is the width of an eyelash right here. An eyelash on the head of a pin is really small, as you know, hard to see. But we're talking about cells, and so we're in the realm of the really small. Okay, so let's get a little bit closer. There's something else there, a little bit wider, almost about the same width as the eyelash. Oh, look, that's cute. That's a dust mite. A dust mite isn't even a cell, that's multicellular. A dust mite is an animal. It's an arachnid, but it never gets any bigger than like the width of a human hair. It's probably living in your pillow right now. No, I'm serious. Let's get a little bit small. Now we start to see this yellow thing. That's a pollen grain. A pollen grain. Again, a pollen grain is actually usually got 2 cells in it, and it's wrapped in protein. So it's not even a single cell. We've got to get really, really close down. Boop, 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 boop. All right, here's a pretty big cell. This is a white blood cell, a lymphocyte. White blood cell, they're pretty big. Right? And then of course you recognize little red, but we're talking, yeah, they're big compared to other cells, but they're tiny compared to, you know, a width of a human hair. This is a yeast, like a mold, a fungus. Let's get a little bit smaller. Here are some bacteria, right? These are prokaryotic cells. As we talked already, they're way smaller than eukaryotic cells. And then as we get even smaller and smaller and smaller, we get into the realm of viruses, right? Like here's this big, long candy cane thing is, let's see, Ebola virus. A virus is not alive, but a virus has inside of it genetic material, and it can hijack living cells. And then if we get even smaller, this is a rhinovirus, like COVID, for example. COVID is a rhinovirus. It's a extremely small, right? So that's where all the debate about wearing masks came from. Like it's pretty small. It's small enough to fit through a mask if it were by itself. But what we've learned is that it tends to be contained in snot droplets, you know, like saliva and mucus. So having a mask works because the viral particles that are contained in there, the mucus gets stuck in your mask, right? And remember, you wear the mask pretty much not to protect you, but to protect others from you, right? To keep, if you have coronavirus, and actually, to be honest, it works for the common cold and the flu. I mean, I don't know about you, but not only have I not had coronavirus, I normally get 3 or 4 colds by this time of year. Haven't had any colds. It must be the mask and the distancing, and it works. All right, so that's small. So then that begs the question, why do cells have to be so small? How come we don't ever see like gigantic, humongous cells? And it has to do with cells respond with their environment through their cell membrane. So things have to go in and out through the cell membrane. And that's why size is important. Like think about the things, even in your own cells, would have to go in are things like oxygen and glucose, and right? And it has to have to come out as carbon dioxide waste, right? As cells get bigger, it's harder to get more of those things in and harder to get more of those things out. Right? So it's harder for cells to function. If cells stay small, it's much easier to move things through the cell membrane to keep the cell alive. So that's why living things, if they are one cell, they are limited in size. And then if you want to get bigger, the way to do it is just to add more cells. So that's why you and I, pretty big animals, we are multicellular. We're made up of millions of little pieces that interact with their environment. Okay? An amoeba can only get so big because it's unicellular. If it gets too big, it can't move enough nutrients and waste in and out of its cell membrane to keep up with all of its life processes. So that's why cells are small.
That's mind-blowing! Ah!